So thank you guys so much for having me. I was delighted that Dennis asked me to come speak. When I decided I wanted to join NAHU, I started searching, and there's Mayhu and Jehu and Ahu and Tehu and all these different Ahus out there. And I finally tracked down the one, and got in touch with Dennis, and we had a long conversation, and I was happy to be a part of it. We have a friend in Texas that is a Medicare agent and heavily involved in Tehu, and she said that I really needed to join. It was a great organization, and I do believe that we're definitely stronger together as a community. And one of the things she told me, she says, now it's going to be a lot of group health people, and I can see that. There's a lot of group health people. You guys speak a foreign language. I'm going to do my best to not, do that to where you guys are like, what in the heck is this guy talking about? So, but there will probably be a little bit of that. Today, I just wanted to go over a little bit of the numbers behind what we're seeing with Medicare growth, cost per acquisition, cost per lead. We're big numbers guys. I lean on the tech side of things to where I can track how much I can spend to acquire a new client based on lifetime values and stuff like that. So I hope numbers and money signs and stuff like that doesn't offend anybody, but that's where I'm going to lead off. And then I'm going to talk about the educational approach that we take to Medicare. And I hope that, for those of you that are marlin fishermen and whalers that are looking for large group cases, understand that there is a lot of value in serving our Medicare community. It's a massively growing portion of the population, and it can be a profitable and fruitful community to serve as well. So our group, we just a little bit about me, background. My dad was an independent agent. He was way back when a member of NAHU, NAIC, a lot of organizations as well. He started out of my house, so I grew up around him selling, old companies, Continental General. He would do some group health, ancillary, everything, and then eventually started doing Medicare supplements. And when I started working with him about 8 years ago when I got out of the Marine Corps, he called his business Bobby Brock Insurance. Well, eventually over time, as he retired, I was like, I can't keep calling it Bobby Brock. Everybody keeps coming in asking where my dad is, and that got annoying to me. So we decided eventually, we transitioned to Medicare Gurus. We believe in the riches and niches and serving this community. And so without further ado, see if my clicker works. So we came up with this phrase: we're on a mission to help 1 million Medicare beneficiaries. And what does that mean? I'm not going to be able to help 1 million people myself. Now, maybe some of you group guys can do that. You land a couple of big groups and you might get really close. But for us, it's individual, incremental, help. It's the old, guy at the house, sitting at the kitchen table, or I'm getting them to us, or we're individual phone conversations, maybe a husband and wife at the same time. So getting to 1 million is very difficult. So I need a lot of agents. I need a large sales team, which we have developed a good sales team. We have about 20 staff members in Tupelo, Mississippi. And we also recruit agents around the country and try to train them and offer more training to get the word out, get the actual practical stuff that will help them get in front of more people. We find there's a lot of training online that's related to mindset and pie in the sky ideas, and not a lot of nitty gritty, like here's exactly how you find people that want to have you help them, and here's how you help them. And so that's what we've tried to develop online. It's probably why Dennis saw me on LinkedIn, as we get around on the internet pretty well now. So talking about the Medicare age population, I know some of you guys probably know all this stuff and have heard this before, but I think it's important to know that right now we sit close to about 60 million Medicare beneficiaries, and in the next 9 years, it will plateau around the growth on this market will plateau around 2029 or 2030, and there will be around 80 million active Medicare beneficiaries. So it's the largest growing segment, age segment of our population right now, and it presents a massive opportunity. It also presents a problem for some people, but for us as health underwriters, we have an opportunity to serve that community as it's growing. And probably not, there's tons of businesses that are shrinking around the country, but for right now, for the next decade, Medicare is a massively growing opportunity for us. There's almost 11,000. Most of the people that will say this will say there's 10,000 people a day. It was actually close to 11,000 people a day on average are turning 65 right now in the United States. So huge portion of people. So the market is continuously shifting. And the cool thing about Medicare is most of you guys have been babying these people their whole lives with group health plans. They don't really have a lot of decisions to make. Their employer's making it for them, and it's A, B, or C, or A or B, or whatever, you know, and maybe some ancillary plans, and they're picking it, and they're happy, and it's good coverage, and you guys have done a great job, and then boom, they get hit with Medicare, and they're like, what is Medicare? I don't know what this is. I don't want to do this. I'll just keep working. No, never mind, I don't want to work forever. I'll just have to deal with it, so then they have to come talk to me or somebody that's helping with Medicare. And there's 11,000 of those people every day, with a large portion of them actually going on Medicare and needing some sort of additional coverage or plan or at least education and understanding of what their options are. So the cool thing about the Medicare age population to me is the plans in the market are all good. It's a battle between good versus better. It's not like picking the president, you know, bad versus worse. You know, is what seems like we get ourselves into that pickle a lot on that side. But with Medicare, there's not a bad option, okay? And so I'll explain what I mean there. In the under 65 health world, there are some bad options. I would think, you know, who agrees that in the under 65 health world you find people that end up in pickles? Raise your hand, raise them up. If you can't raise your hand, you know, you guys aren't going to work hard, okay? You're not going to make any money. So raise your hand up if you believe that. So some of the people in here believe there are no bad options for well, you guys don't even need, you could just retire, whatever they get will be good. So, but no, there are some bad options in the under 65 world, bad ones. You know, there are people that are getting on plans, they don't understand that underwrite at the time of a claim. Somebody that ends up in the hospital has a $110,000 claim, and boom, now the underwriting's coming through and they deny the coverage because there's pre-existing condition clauses. In the group market, you're probably doing a much better job than that, but we see that a lot in the self-employed market and people coming and getting on plans like this. But on Medicare, you basically have your Medicare with a supplement option, or your Medicare and Medicaid, or your Medicare and a Medicare Advantage plan. And so a lot of people will say, oh, Medicare supplements are better than Medicare Advantage. The thing about that is there's some truth to the fact that Medicare with a supplement has some freedom of choice and some understood coverage, but there's also some truth to that. If I could get on a Medicare Advantage plan right now, I'd be on one because they're actually pretty awesome in comparison to what I have with a $10,000 family deductible. So I might have to talk to one of you group health guys to try to solve this problem for me. But right now, talking about Medicare, there are two big Medicare options, Medicare and a supplement, Medicare Advantage. They're both good. It doesn't matter which one's better because some people can't afford one of them and they look at the other one and it's still a good option. Still has a maximum out of pocket. Still is not going to deny coverage for pre-existing conditions. So a lot of the big stuff that was an issue in under 65 that led to the Affordable Care Act, even though Mississippi was already onto something with a risk pool like Eugene said, a lot of those problems in Medicare have been solved for a long time. It's why the people that are pushing for Medicaid for all keep using the term Medicare for all because they're trying to hijack the term Medicare because Medicare is viewed as good. You know, if they used Medicaid for all, nobody'd be for it. So, okay, so now I'm going to get into a little bit of our numbers, and I don't want this to like confuse anybody because I'm going to break it down a little bit later, but I want to talk about the opportunity at hand and then kind of backwards engineer into how we get the numbers that we're looking at. It's not going to show up as the CMS approved amount for one Medicare Advantage plan sale or anything like that, but we're talking about an actual value that we're getting out of our individual clients at a new to Medicare basis, the new to Medicare emphasis, the educational pitch, right? So the average first year commission that we're actually seeing on a client across the board with the way that we present products and options is $1,089. Now the numbers that I'm presenting are real. They come out of our CRM over several years of actually tracking this stuff. So it's an actual breakdown number. It's not an estimate for me. So $1,089. And that's the only number you get because my clicker broke. So maybe I need to point it there. There we go. Okay, so lifetime monetary value. So does anybody calculate like LTVs or cost per acquisitions in their practice? Is that something anybody does? So in Medicare, because we're looking at individual transactions, we have to track it almost like a store does inventory so that I know how much I can spend to acquire a new client. You know, that's how I backwards engineer into my marketing budget. So the lifetime monetary value for us, for a client, is $4,412. Now that figure changes based on life expectancy, the number of clients we get, our retention practices, all sorts of things. But right now we view the lifetime value of an individual Medicare client that we attain at 65 or when they're new to Medicare as $4,412 in their lifetime. Let's see. Sometimes I'll click it too many times and then it'll like go to 15 slides ahead. Okay, so now I'm going to talk our lead cost per acquisition. CPA equals cost per acquisition. This is what do I have to spend on leads or marketing to acquire one of those individual clients. The lead cost per acquisition for us is $163.54. It's fair to say that most people should also look at what we call the fixed cost per acquisition. Meaning, you know, we have staff and retention practices and phones and internet and all of those things. And so that portion costs us, it's not, there it goes. Okay, and then the fixed cost per acquisition is $280.64. It's separate from my lead cost CPA. This is how we track these differently because it helps us know if I can spend more on marketing versus if I can spend more on my infrastructure. Next slide. So this equals a first year profit when I said $1,089, you know, minus my cost to acquire a client, total fixed and lead cost is $644.81. Now the higher that we've scaled, the lower that typically got, but we also got better at covering other, you know, secondary and tertiary needs, just like you would do in the group market when you're looking at what you would probably refer to as some sort of, you know, gap plan or hospital indemnity or other things. There are other things in the Medicare market as well, cancer, dental, that kind of thing. So as we got better at offering those benefits, we were able to raise the value of the client, but at the same time, we were taking on more expenses from our infrastructure standpoint, and we were spending more on advertising. Now, there's a reason I talk about all this. The total lifetime profit from when I look at a lifetime value minus the cost per acquisition is $3,967.19. One of the big reasons I want you to see those numbers is a lot of people look at Medicare like, wow, it's really confusing. There's not a lot of profit in it. I'm trying to drive home the fact that it is an extremely profitable niche and growing niche and massive market to serve. I see a lot of people that'll go after a niche that they're having trouble with because it's maybe very difficult. Group health, from my perspective, is it's difficult. There's a lot of who you know, and you gotta really network and make a lot of friends in the industry to be able to get in the right rooms, and that can take a lot of time. Medicare is almost something you can kind of pick up and start a practice and get in front of these individual people right away. Maybe not to abandon the group health side, but to have something that's driving profit, helping people, building a business, and then have a lane to be in while you develop the group health side. We've considered developing a group health side ourselves. I just get so busy trying to help 1 million Medicare beneficiaries, I'm kind of laser focused. So next slide here. So now I'll go on about these metrics as best I can shortly, but first, how do you scale quickly? So this is a point I wanted to drive home in how these call centers around the country are using metrics to make it difficult for local agencies. And I'm trying to reverse that. We're not a call center. I don't like the term call center. We want to be a phone-friendly and face-to-face brokerage that's local, that develops local people, local resource centers, but that can use the metrics and the numbers to know how to beat the large call centers that use these metrics to kind of punish us, right? So next slide. So the reason that they are able to beat us is a local small town agent makes the money whether it's $3,967 when you look at that lifetime value, or whether they're looking at the lifetime value as $1,400 or whatever it is per client, the local person is putting it in their pocket and not reinvesting in their business and not, growing their infrastructure. Whereas the call center says, I don't need to make money today, I don't need to make money tomorrow, I don't need to make money this year, I don't need to make money like next year sometimes. I just need to eventually make enough money and grow my business so that I can sell off to, somebody, whoever will buy me. Blue Cross, Aetna, you've seen the ones, Towers Watson, all these large corporations that'll buy these distribution channels, right? Well, it's because they're investing and they know exactly how much they can invest. So by me tracking my numbers as a local agency, it allows me to begin to make plans on how I can invest and beat call centers. Call centers, I don't think, are doing very well in a 50-mile radius of Tupelo, Mississippi, because I'm outspending them and I can beat them locally. The only reason they can beat some local agents is because they have an infrastructure to grab more. They're able to invest in more agents, more people dialing, more pestering, annoying telemarketer phone calls, and more internet advertising. Whereas I'm kind of beating them on that, locally. And I want more brokers to understand that they can also invest heavily in their business and beat out that large national competition. So clearly my goal is not to tell you to go spend $3,900 to acquire a client. That's not what I'm doing, but the person that can spend as close to that as possible, or the more that they can spend to acquire a client, the harder it's going to make anybody competing against them. Because I would think that you would all know that if you can spend more on marketing than all of your competitors, you're eventually going to beat them 9 times out of 10. That's just the way it works. So most of us can spend more on marketing, and us spending more on marketing and infrastructure has done really well for us and grown us by about 35% in net revenue for about 5 years in a row now, each year. So that's the numbers thing. I was sitting down last night and I'm like, what can I talk to a bunch of people that may not be in Medicare? I meant to ask this before so I could gauge the room, but how many people actually do sell Medicare in the room? All right, so we do have a few. So good. A couple of them are with me, but yeah, we do have a few. But I wanted to talk to the group health guys, like how can I talk to people that may not see the value in Medicare or may just say, hey, Medicare's over there, I'll just refer it to you. And by all means, I got to help 1 million Medicare beneficiaries before I die, so I need you to refer it to me if you're not going to help them, okay? So that's I have cards galore. If you don't plan on doing it, by all means, we'll take very good care of them and not replace any of your business because I don't want any of that. So I am going to go into this new to Medicare educational pitch. This is how we present. We believe that Medicare is now an educational, we're in an educational sales environment. I think we're in an educational sales environment in everything. If anybody wants a good read, Gary Vaynerchuk is he may be a little brash for some of you, but he has a book called The Thank You Economy, and he's talking about how we've evolved, and this has been happening for a long time, but we've evolved to where you can't have this high pressure sales system anymore. There's choice in the market and people have a choice of who they go to. And so we try to take an educational approach to sales. Now it's still sales. I don't like not saying I'm a salesperson because I think that's a cop-out. I don't sell, I just educate. Well, if you educate someone to the point that they're comfortable buying from you, then you just sold them. So that's what sales is. But in Medicare, we do a new to Medicare educational phone pitch that we also do in person. We are doing more and more by phone, but still trying to do it locally. Remember, I hate the term call center. So next slide. So number one, when we're talking to our Medicare beneficiaries over the phone or in person, we think that people buy what they see, not what they hear. Okay, it's me. I can tell somebody something over and over and over again, and it just goes one ear out the other, or they don't trust it. So we make everybody write it down. First thing I do on the phone is I say, all right, Mrs. Smith, I need you to get out a piece of paper and a pen. And 99% of the time, they do. They go and get out a piece of paper and a pen. That's not a threatening thing. I need you to write something down. I'm not going to tell her to, draw anything crazy or write 666 down or anything crazy like that. I'm just going to tell her some Medicare stuff. So she goes and gets the pen and paper. And I say, draw a line straight down the middle of the paper. And on one side, I want you to write new to Medicare, or not new to Medicare. One side, I want you to write Medicare. The other side, I want you to write Medicare Advantage. And then we begin to compare both sides. I want to say, this is what Medicare by itself looks like. This is what Medicare Advantage looks like. We actually then go to the next piece of paper and we say, I want you to draw another line down the middle, and I want you to write Medicare Supplement versus Medicare Advantage. And we begin to try to compare this as they see it, they believe what you're saying, and I could have just told them, but how many people believe when you tell somebody something, they either don't believe it or they forget it a lot more than if they had to write it down? You remember having to write lines in school? I will not talk in class. I will shut my big mouth in class, whatever it was. There's something about writing it and seeing it maybe that made it become real, right? It made my hand hurt more than anything. But so number 2, as a sales principle for us, always agree. Agree. Now, there's the old homage or phrase that I don't believe in, and this phrase is the customer's always right. Sometimes they're not right, but I'm going to agree with them like they're right, because disagreeing with them and being rude is not going to help me get anywhere with them. If you see people arguing politics on Facebook, just arguing with each other, do they ever convince one another of the other side of the coin? No, because they're just always arguing and it's not getting anywhere, right? So in sales, we say agree. So, when they tell me whatever it is that they say, that I'm thinking, I'm going to find a way to try to draw a correlation with what they're saying and say, yeah, I understand what you're saying. That makes sense, and then move on. But that's very important, especially in phone sales, because you're having to keep them on the phone. And when we train our agents in our main offices, they are doing more and more by phone, especially since COVID happened. We went from doing about 40% by phone to doing about 70% by phone now. So, next slide. So stay the course, understand the difference between helpful dialogue and abandoning the line from start to close. I don't know if anybody in here has ever taken a sales course or done any sales training, but Jordan Belfort, who's a criminal and a bad guy, has a great sales practice. You can take good things from some people even when they're not great people, but he has a straight line sales book that talks about staying, the course from start to close. And a lot of times with Medicare beneficiaries, they have more time than you do. It just so happens that some of them are retired and you're the most exciting thing that's happened to them today, this phone call. And so sometimes they will talk to you for a long, long time about a lot of stuff. And we want to be friendly and nice, but a big thing I have to train my agents on is, okay, well, now we're deviating too far. So we always look at this line. Here's where we started and here's where we ended. I want to get to close, and it's okay if I deviate from the line, but I'm always going to be trying to find ways to bring it back to stay in this course. By bringing it back, I'm saying, okay, so you have a cat, and does anybody else live with you besides that cat? Jeff, is he over 60? So I'm gathering facts, bringing it back to things that I need to know in my dialogue. That's a very it seems second nature to some people to have that conversation. It's not always second nature. Some of us just want to talk to Mrs. Jenkins for 2 hours, and she's sweet and I love her, but I can't help other people if I don't help Mrs. Jenkins and get on to Mrs. Smith. So next slide. So avoid price conversations until you've hit all the coverage pain points. So when we're educating, I'm not really talking about price along the way. I'm talking about Part A, Part B, all these different things in a certain order, which I'll go over next. But I'm not bringing in price to it. So I'm trying to illustrate, here's the need. This is the total potential out of pocket in this area. This is the risk here. This is what this is already doing for you that you don't need any additional coverage for. These are the holes, blah, blah, blah. We're just kind of working our way through that understanding of Medicare and concepts to where they're like, yeah, I understand that. And then I get into the individual incremental costs. So next slide. So, and this may be jargon to some of you, but the way we present in the context here is Part A, Part B, dental, vision, and hearing, Part D, and cancer. Actually, right in between, I did this slide last night, so in between Part B and dental, vision, hearing is actually medigap or Medicare supplement. So, or we do Medicare Advantage plus hospital indemnity with cancer rider. But that Part A, Part B, medigap or the supplement, dental, vision, and hearing, Part D, and cancer is the way that we present it in a specific order for a specific reason. And Part B is it's traditional Medicare. This is how it works. Now, Part A and B doesn't cover dental, vision, and hearing, but we can take care of that with, an ancillary product that's designed to, pick up some of that portion, which we'll go over in a little bit. And then we'll talk about Part D, or drug coverage. And I have to talk about Part D, or drug coverage, before I talk about the need for additional cancer policies, which some people won't agree with, but it's because they're not taking into account the idea that a Part D prescription drug plan has a 95% catastrophic coverage max, and there's a 5% coverage gap with no limit, which a drug like Revlimid, which is going to be $24,000, $25,000 a month, 5% of that's still expensive, so we like an additional cancer policy that can help alleviate that burden. So that is the order we go in. You can keep going. You're right. Me and you, we're like this, man. So number 6, now we get into price. We have a sheet that breaks this thing down. We have developed tons of resources for our agents so that it's not just having to be pounded into their head. There's actually a flow to the conversation and resources that illustrate, especially when I'm in person. Having these resources are amazing. But we have a sheet that breaks down each product and what the cost is. If I'm on the phone, I make them write down what's on the sheet. So I have a sheet that I'm in person, but if I'm on the phone, they can't see my sheet. So what I want them to do is I want them to write down what I can see so that they can see it the way that I'm trying to explain it, right? So still part of that seeing makes it real. I make them write it down, abbreviate it. It's not going to be quite as detailed as my sheet. And then I write the total price as we backwards engineer into the breakdown. I backwards engineer into a lot of things in my life. But when we talk about total price, we're saying, okay, these are all the needs that we've agreed we had. It would cost about X amount to fill all those needs. And then when they say, well, that makes sense, that's cheaper than I thought it was, then I come back and break down that price by, okay, here's what your Part B is going to cost you, here's what your Medicare supplement's going to cost you, here's what all this is going to cost. And then next slide. So that's psychological, because if you tell them individually before you give them a total price and have them in their head thinking, I believe in this product on slot, this is what I want, that price is okay with me. If you start nitpicking and going through individual prices first, then they're going to start thinking, well, let's just chisel this down as low as I can get it and start, throwing out all kinds of stuff that later on they're going to want anyway. But so the psychological, you want to break down what all they're purchasing, but before you do that, you want them to want the product, so you want to sell the idea of the product, and then you want to be okay with the total price before you start breaking down each individual segment. So next slide. So that is it. And I can see this guy right here is like, Medicare is boring. I'm falling asleep. This is terrible. I can't believe he's making me watch this. So I don't want to dive deeper into Medicare, because some of you will never want to know. And for those people, I want you to just send it to me or one of the other agents in the room and develop good referral relationships, which by the way, is another amazing consequence of getting in the room with other people. We all have different strengths, and I believe, anytime that I've been in networking groups or professional organizations, I've picked up times where people refer me business, or I've just developed friends that really help me get through burnout periods. And I'm sure having friends in the industry really helped a lot of you get through this COVID period where you're like, what am I going to do now? If you're all out there by yourself, a lot of those people probably got out of the industry because they didn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. But we do love to train agents, and we do put a lot of content out there. I PG'd this one down, so if you see me, on YouTube, throw out, say the S word or something every now and then, I'm sorry. That's just my style's a little brazen sometimes when I'm training agents. But go to youtube.com/Justin Brock, and next slide there. And so we have a bunch of these PDFs I wanted to give you guys. So if anybody wants those and thinks it'd be helpful, you can text resources to 662-340-8557. And then when we get back into Tupelo, we will get those resources out to you.